hello. It is me, Dr. Catherine Toomer. I welcome to my show, the Dr. Toomer Talk Show. And so I am again Dr. Catherine Toomer. I'm a family medicine and community health physician, and I am also the founder of Total Weight Care Institute. I am also the new host of a new podcast, which you all are going to be invited to, and it is called Touched by Dr. Catherine Toomer. And what it's going to be about is anyone who has been affected by someone else, I'd like them to tell their story. Just to celebrate all the different things that, that just make us us and all the people who got us there. And so, so I'll be announcing more about that. And and I'm just trying to make sure, I think checking my, okay, yes, I was checking my Wi-Fi. It looked like it was going to be unstable, but it looks like it's corrected itself. Thank goodness. Okay. So today I wanted to talk about sabotage. And the reason I want to talk about this is because I see it happen often. And it manifests in lots of different ways, and people are always very surprised when I call them out for what they're doing and calling it sabotage. And some of it may be a misnomer. Now, sabotage actually is a deliberate act of trying to undermine something beneficial. And, so when most of the time in a weight health process, and when people are trying to lose weight and they start doing things that undermine their weight loss progress, usually it's not obvious. Usually it's not intentional. So really, we call it sabotage, but what it really is like subconscious obstruction. So subconscious obstruction rather than sabotage. Sabotage is deliberate. Subconscious obstruction is not deliberate. And most people are not deliberately trying to undermine themselves. And there's usually a very good reason. But many times when I tell people that they are, what I recognize is them sort of undermining their process, they're always very surprised that, why do I say that? And so I wanted to talk about the 4 ways in which I see this happening the most. And I say it's hidden because, again, most people don't recognize it for what it is. We know the obvious ones: procrastination, talking ourselves out of things, doing stuff that we know goes against everything that we say is beneficial for our process. So, those things are obvious, but it's the hidden ones that I want to talk about. And so one of the most common ones I see, particularly around the beginning of the year, is setting unrealistic goals. We often set goals. Goal setting is a really important part of improvement, of self-development. One of those parts of being a goal is it needs to be measurable. It needs to be something that is very specific, very measurable. And if we set them too high, we set ourselves up for failure. And usually what happens if we're measuring in a scale that is just simply unrealistic. So for example, if someone says, I want to lose 20 pounds in a month, it is possible, but it's not possible in a healthy way. And so usually what happens is that it doesn't happen. And the person will go to extremes to try and make it happen. And when nothing does happen, they give up. Or it ends up doing more damage than good. When losing weight very quickly, using extreme measures, what happens is you lose muscle along with fat. Yes, numbers on the scale come down, but they're unhealthy numbers coming down. When you lose muscle, you lose your metabolism. And what happens is that extreme behavior cannot be maintained. And so what happens is the weight comes back, and it comes back in the form of fat, which is exactly what we don't want to happen. It's unhealthy weight gain. Muscle is healthy weight gain. Fat is unhealthy weight gain. So if you think of it like running, for example, you want to get from point A to point B. And if you walk there, it may take you a little longer, but you'll get there eventually. And you're getting there at a pace that is healthy for you, that you can maintain from the point A to point B. Now, if you start sprinting to that point and you're not a runner, what's more likely going to happen is you'll be able to sprint, get a little distance very quickly, and then you won't be able to move after that. You either get a cramp or you injure yourself in some way. And so therefore you can't make it the rest of the way. That's essentially what making unrealistic goals is. Often it's either a goal that's too high or a goal that's too quick. And so it's just really important. So when it comes to weight loss, the most important, most healthy way to lose weight is 0.5 pounds to 2 pounds a week on average. And that also includes plateaus. It also includes stalls. It's not going to be straight line down. Weight loss is this. It's kind of like this, then no, then stop, So that's what happens with weight loss. So it's really important. The other thing is not comparing yourselves to other people. I often hear people saying, well, I watch other people lose weight. First of all, we don't know how they did it. We don't know what their regimen is. We don't know what support they've got. And, especially when it comes to celebrities who have personal chefs, they have all these people doing their jobs for them that they don't get stressed out about, unlike the rest of us who have to deal with stress and deal with life issues, along with trying to stay healthy. So, we just can't compare ourselves to other people. Number 2 is the all or nothing mentality. Again, I see this a lot also around the beginning of the year, but I see it with anyone starting a new process. And usually what it is that person will say, I am going to, become a vegetarian, and I'm going to start exercising every day, and I'm going to sleep 8 hours, and I'm going to drink this much water, and I'm going to just do all these things all at once. Well, what happens generally is if one of those things fall, they all fall. It's like juggling many balls in the air at once. If you slip and miss one ball, they all tumble. It's hard to keep them all up in the air if you miss one. So the better thing to do is to just have one ball in the air until you get really comfortable keeping that ball in the air before you add another. And that's how you counter that. But I see that often. And so usually what that does is just sets people up for failure. Again, too many things all at once. And you feel like there's a perfect way of doing something, which there isn't. I mean, we do things all day, every day that are just done to the best of our abilities. They're done to the best of what it is that we need to get done. However, when it comes somehow to our health, particularly our weight health, we change what that is. We tend to become perfectionists when there is no such thing as perfection in this process. And before I continue, I'm going to say hello, Patsy. Hello, Chris. Hello, Linda. Thank you for joining. And if you're listening right now, let me know where you're listening from. It's always nice to know. And if you watch this later, put in #replay so I know that you've seen it. The other is at the end, I will answer questions. So get your questions ready. And if I do not get to your question here in this section, you can go to my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/@DrToomer, DrToomer. And you can leave the questions there. I do see them. That's the best place for me to see your questions. So you can leave them there and I'll answer them. So number 1, setting unrealistic goals. Number 2, the all or nothing mentality. Number 3, and I talk about this a lot, negative self-talk. Suddenly you're doing well. You're losing weight. You're everything's going fine. And then you start saying, oh, well, I didn't do this. I'm not doing that. I'm not losing enough weight. And so what happens is that, or the self-criticism becomes, I've lost 10 pounds and I can't see it. What that is it is self-sabotage. Now that's obvious, but even though it may not be deliberate, it's still very obvious. But what that does, it also changes what the hormonal process in your body is. And therefore, when you eat, it changes what happens to food in our body. Now, I talk a lot about this, about the effect of cortisol. Cortisol, one of the things that raises our cortisol faster than anything else is negative self-talk. We know what bullying does. We know that bullying causes stress. Imagine if that bully is yourself. Our body reacts to bullying, whether it's someone else or whether it is ourself. And usually when it's ourself, we're actually better at it because we know our triggers, and that's where we tend to go when we badly self-talk. And so that is one of the ways that we undermine any process, by convincing ourselves that we're not going to be able to do it, that we're going to fail at it, and that we won't be successful. And so the only way to change that is by writing down positive things. And I know it sounds really hokey, and I know it sounds like, oh, okay, here we go. But speaking nicely to yourself in a mirror helps. Keeping a gratitude journal, writing down the good things that happened during the day, the good things that you've done during the day, the things that gave you joy, the things that you did well. When you start focusing on those things, it starts changing your mindset. It starts changing the way you see the world. It starts changing the way you interact with the world. It's practice, though. It is a muscle, and it takes time and practice for that muscle to become strong. And so it's really important, though, to do that. So if you find yourself speaking badly about yourself, just know that that in and of itself can cause you health issues. And those health issues, one of those health issues is manifested as weight gain, and it stalls weight loss. So number 4 is looking for reasons to say that what's happening isn't working. Now, this is probably one of the more common things I see. Being told that what you're doing isn't working, but when I investigate, it actually is working. The whole point of some of the activities is to lose weight. So if you're assigning your weight loss to other things, a certain feeling, a certain activity in life, certain rewards, and those things don't happen, then it's easy to say that the weight loss isn't happening, when in fact the numbers on a scale are actually coming down. And so that, again, isn't what the measurement is, it's how you're measuring it. And so it's really important to set goals that are realistic and then measure them realistically. That is why it's often very important to have partners, to have a team, to have a community, to have someone who's working with you in order to remind you and to kind of keep you motivated and to recognize when those things are happening so they stop it. When you're on your own and you're isolated, it's very easy to convince yourself of anything when you have no one else to say you're right or you're wrong. So finding reasons of things, being overly critical of a process, suddenly not thinking anything's good enough, those type of things are all considered sabotaging type behaviors, sabotaging thoughts. And then 5, because I can't count. I know I said 4, but as I was doing this, I remembered one more, and I had already put the title out. So I'm like, oh, well, you get an extra. So number 5 is ignoring or refusing to act in ways that directly counter the cause of weight gain. Now, I'm going to repeat that because I know it's a little confusing. So if we identify things that are a problem, and you absolutely refuse to go after that problem, then what that means is you're sabotaging yourself before you start. Good example. If you get your blood sugar checked and it's high, you get your hemoglobin A1C checked and it's a little high, you're pre-diabetic, pre-diabetic, or are diabetic, and your doctor says you need to treat this and you refuse, essentially what you're saying is, I am going to ignore the reason that I'm gaining weight, expecting to have a successful result by doing something else. No, I'm not saying that you can't do things without medication. I'm not saying that you can't do things without treating. It just makes it a whole lot harder. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Good analogy. You've got a boulder, you're trying to push it up a hill. The whole goal is to get this boulder to the top of a hill. And you're pushing and pushing and you're making progress, but it is hard. It is very difficult. Then someone comes along with a tractor and says, why don't we just pull it up? And you refuse to use the tractor. This is what I'm talking about. Refusing to use the tools that you're given to make the job more efficient and make it easier and make you more successful. And I don't want to sound like I'm lecturing, because I mean, I am to a certain degree, but not totally, because we all do it. It is not just a fear of failure. When it comes to weight health, often it's the fear of success. Some of us don't like it, don't like the attention we get when we lose weight. And so we may subconsciously start eating more, start doing things to undermine our weight loss. Others of us have never been thin and are scared of the unknown. So it's much easier to stay in a place that's familiar, even if it's not the place you want to be, than it is to step into the unknown, because it's unfamiliar and it could be scary. So it's not only the fear of failure that keeps us back, but sometimes it's the fear of success. And so again, I'm just going to repeat them. So the things that I see most frequently when it comes to people undermining their process, and this isn't just for weight loss. I put weight loss on the title, but really it's just health in general. And really this applies to just about any type of self-improvement that you're trying to achieve. So number one, setting unrealistic goals. If you're not sure what kind of goals are realistic, talk to someone who's done it, but who also is trained to help you reach that goal. Like I've said before, experience can inspire you. Education will guide you, but it's expertise that will keep you safe. And so if you're looking for someone or something, a process that you're trying to achieve, make sure you find someone preferably with all three. Number one is setting unrealistic goals. Number two is all or nothing mentality. If you go too far too fast, you will injure yourself in the process, whether it's psychological injury, whether it's physical injury, whether it's social injury. You cut yourself off from friends because they go out to eat a lot and you're like, I can't do that. It affects your friendships. If you try not to eat certain foods, or you only eat cabbage for a week and you don't maintain it and you feel like a failure, that's psychological damage. If you try to run too fast, lift weights too heavily that are too heavy for you, and you injure yourself, that's physical injury. So if you do things that are too far, too fast on any level, it injures you in some way. So it's always go slow, start low, go slow, meet yourself at the level that you are. So again, number three. And then number three is negative self-talk. Be nice to yourself. Just be kind. Love yourself wherever you are, because no matter where you are, if you love yourself where you are, you'll love yourself wherever you go. If you don't love yourself where you are right now, no matter where you go, you're not going to love yourself. So no matter what results you get, it's not going to give you the feeling that you're seeking. So learn that now. Wherever you are, be that person that you want to be now, and then let the rest follow. Number four, ignore all the reasons that you say something's not working. Again, this is where guidance comes in. This is where working with people or being around people who have expertise in education, who can tell you what's truly to expect, and to help you counter the negative talk that you've convinced yourself is true when in fact it may not be. And then, of course, number five, because I can't count, is to really go after the cause. If whatever the reason, if it's stress, then you maintain or go after your stress levels. If it is because of certain dietary actions, then you eliminate those. Although I'm not a big fan of cutting out food, I'm more of a fan of using food as a soothing mechanism, not self-soothing, but like a self-care mechanism. So that way you can enjoy yourself, but you just do it in moderation so it doesn't cause you too much of a problem. If you know that your metabolism is shot and that's the reason why you're having difficulty, then you've got to build muscle. There's no other way around it. If you have prediabetes or diabetes and your doctor says, all you have to do is treat this and, your fat production will stop. But you ignore that and that advice and instead try to do something else, you're taking what should be a very easy and efficient process and making it very, very, very difficult for absolutely no reason. And so if these things are happening, then you've got to think, what am I afraid of? What am I afraid? Am I afraid of failing? If you're afraid of failing, get someone to help you. And if you're afraid of success, that is something different and you need counseling. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because if you truly want something, you'll do what's necessary in order to have it, of course, within reason and within the law. But other than that, really, it's just use all the tools at your disposal. So again, I'm Dr. Catherine Toomer, family medicine, community health physician, weight health specialist, founder of Total Weight Care Institute, and we'll be starting my new podcast. It's called Touched by Dr. Toomer, and it is going to be stories of influence, stories of profound impact, and so you'll be hearing more about that soon. For anyone who wants to hear more from me and who doesn't want to miss my other episodes or wants to ask me questions, subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Dr. Toomer. And which would be very helpful. I'm trying to get over 1,000 followers or subscribers. I have 12,000 on TikTok, but it'd be nice if they transferred over to YouTube as well. So if you're listening and you like the information you've heard, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. And if you'd like to learn more about possibly working with me, I do consultations. The consultations are actually strategy plans. You'll walk away with the plan in place that either you can work with me to achieve or you can take to another doctor, but you will walk away knowing exactly what it is that you need to do. And you can contact me through my website, drtoomer.com, in order to set that up. All right. So if you have any questions, I just want to say, hello, Chris, you're here. Hello, Doe, Connie from Texas, and Denise from Pennsylvania. So Chris says, I used to be and still struggle with this from time to time, being the world's best self-critic. I've gotten much better since I've been listening to you. Thank you so much. Yeah, sometimes all you need is a cheerleader. I mean, really, cheerleaders work for a reason. When you hear good things and you get people who just cheer you on and just let you know that, you're doing great. I mean, honestly, again, you have to decide how you're going to measure success. If you measure success, so, if you're a fish and you measure your success by how well you climb a tree, you're always going to say that you're failing. If you're a small fish and you measure yourself against a shark who can swim 35 miles an hour, yeah, you're going to feel like you're failing. It just depends on how you measure. But if you measure based on the fact that, one, you can swim and that you can get from point A to point B, maybe not as fast as you want, but you still get there, then you're successful. It's really how you measure your success. And so in the process, you look for what we call silver lining, being a Pollyanna. I mean, sometimes it just works. No, you may not have lost a pound, this week, but you got good sleep, but you found a great, series on Netflix that you're going to enjoy because, sitting and watching something is also just as important in relaxation. You made a new friend. You found another place that you like to sit and have lunch at work that's relaxing, where you can listen to a fountain. I mean, there's so many ways that you can measure, things that happen in life, and it doesn't all have to be about weight loss. Because like I said, sometimes it's the weight in, it's whatever in life is weighing you down. It doesn't have to be pounds on a scale. Linda says, I will subscribe to your YouTube channel. I would like to collaborate as a clinical psychologist. Absolutely. We'll talk. Definitely. And chocolate coated. Oh, I love that name. I just subscribed and glad to have found you. I'm glad you found me. I'm actually going to smile every time I see your name. So if you change it, that's okay. But just know I'm smiling every time I see your question or comment. So what I'm going to, Linda, what I'm going to have you do, because as soon as this is over, some of these comments get lost. So just so you can send me a message, a DM on Facebook, just so to make sure I have your email. So you say, oh, you do bariatric surgery evaluation. And that's, you know, that's helpful because, you know, bariatric surgery, although now with the advent of GLP-1s, probably is not, it used to be more of the more definitive things we had because we really didn't have anything else. We have other tools now. And so often, but like with any weight loss, helping people understand and deal with the changes, especially the physical changes, because along with those physical changes come psychological changes. And it's really important that not only do people understand what they're going to go through, but also what the people around them. It's the people really, we know the biology and everyone understands the biology. However, the psychosocial is really where people have the most difficulty. You're like, yes, the injection is easier, but it's also the injection actually treats the cause of weight gain. Bariatric surgery, yes, it does help, but many people, and someone like myself who was 100 pounds heavier at one point, I can tell you it reduces the amount you can eat. And many of us who are obese weren't overeating. And so by restricting our eating, it temporarily led to weight loss. But most of our eating was the configuration of what we're eating that causes a problem. Carbohydrates mainly, and not enough protein. It wasn't the volume. And so restricting the volume of food only helps a certain subset of people who need to lose weight. And so, oh, Bernard says, hello. Cletus says, hello, everyone. So if you have any other questions, I need to encourage myself to eat less cake. Well, I can tell you as someone who loves cake, no, really, and I'm just in all seriousness, there's a way to eat cake that makes it less of an issue. And the way to do that is to load up on protein and vegetables first. Then you're kind of full, so you're not going to eat as much cake anyway. And it's the sugar in the cake that's really an issue. So when you've already had a lot of protein and a lot of fiber, and then you eat some sugar, it's not going to have the same effect in your body. And the key is, if you're going to eat it, make sure you enjoy every single bite, because otherwise, what's the point? Oh, okay. Please add me up for more information. So what you can do, Bernard, if you're just coming in, you can, if you're not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, or if you're not already following me on Facebook, you can do that. You can get more information. The other is, if you have topics that you'd like me to speak about and they're not there, you can just send me a message and I'll add it to my list. So there are specific and individualized assessments are required. I'm assuming you're talking about for bariatric surgery. Yes, for any weight loss process, it requires very individualized assessments. And usually it's a metabolic. So what I do is I do metabolic assessments. I do psychological assessments of basically looking for anxiety, depression, ADHD, because all those things affect how we act with food and what food does in our body. The other that I do is social, try to determine, what's the support mechanism, who does the cooking, shopping, grocery shopping, what are the cultural indications, What are some of the cultural foods that, people really want to maintain and not give up? And how do you do that in a circumstance when, sometimes, if especially if the foods are carb heavy, how do you counter that? And so you just take it all together and you create a program. And, there are people, I personally have helped people lose as much as 200, 250 pounds. Then I've also known other people who I've assisted who've lost, anywhere from 3, 4, actually now I think he's at 450 plus pounds. Started over 700 pounds and now is in the 400s. Now in the 300s has lost over 400. So please hit me up with messages. I have diabetes, so you can assist me. Oh, please. Okay, so Bernard, what you can do if you have diabetes, first of all, it should be very simple. Diabetes is bread and butter primary care. And when it's treated properly, it will take care of itself. The weight gain stops, the weight gain reverse, the sugar craving stops. And so it's really important, though, to not avoid medication. Diabetes is one of those things where you've got to treat the metabolic part so that you can take care of the rest. When the metabolic part's taken care of, it makes it easier for the psychological part to be taken care of and the social part to be taken care of. And so you start with medication, and then you use muscle to counter as best you can. But the main part of diabetes is protecting your end organs, protecting your small vessels as best you can, as quickly as you can, to prevent blindness, to prevent heart disease, to prevent dementia, and to prevent any type of circulatory problems that leads to, that affects healing, particularly sores, or that affects feet, or that affects skin, like with fungal infections and that sort of thing. That's the most important thing. And anyone who's a primary care doctor should know how to do this well. It is our bread and butter, as they say. Diabetes treatment, and using a GLP-1, we have a magnificent medication out, Mounjaro and Ozempic. We have Trulicity. We've got even Victoza that work very, very well. We've been using them for over 20 years, and they're safe. And I know there's a lot of misinformation out there, mainly because of misuse and abuse and mismanagement, but not because of the medication. The medication, actually, in the 20 years I've been using it for over 10 years. I've been on one for over 10 years and using it, prescribing it for that long. And I've never had a complication. The worst complication was that it didn't do anything. The person was resistant to it. And that's a very small percentage of the population that happens with. So my diabetes is in remission due to bariatric surgery in the sleep. Yes, it can do that. It absolutely can. So what happens? So often what happens with diabetes, especially with weight loss, is your hemoglobin A1C goes down to what is considered pre-diabetic range, or below even, because that's the only criteria that we use. One of the things that I do, and this is very important to get done, is a glucose tolerance test with a free insulin. The insulin level will actually tell you what your metabolic status is. A1C is great. When it's abnormal, it tells you something. When it's normal, it doesn't always. It doesn't give you your metabolic status. Your insulin level does. And so getting a glucose tolerance test with an insulin level at the 1 and 2 hour mark will actually show you what your actual status is. And then what that does is just tells you how much risk you may be in anyway. I can tell you, as someone with my A1C is about 5.2. However, my blood sugars can still shoot up really high if I'm not careful. Caroline says, "Hi, Doc." Hi. Yes, metabolic status is key. The only issue is that metabolic status can be tested for in different ways. And when we use only A1C and fasting blood sugars, it's missed. Some of the ways that it manifests is missed, because insulin levels also. And if you are someone who is very sensitive to cortisol, which will push you into insulin resistance, it may not affect your A1C, it may not affect your blood sugars, but it will definitely affect your metabolic status. And so you're still at risk for metabolic issues, without the numbers. And that's why numbers only tell part of the story. And it's really important to treat the person, not just their numbers. So any more questions at all? If you think of anything later, like I said, subscribe to my YouTube channel, leave the questions there. I do see them. I have my notifications on so I can see them. And you can follow me also on Facebook. And I'm also on TikTok and Instagram. However, most of my information, the questions I see best on YouTube, and but all of my videos and everything goes on to Facebook. Hello, I just started Wegovy, but still crave sugar. Is it too soon? Absolutely too soon. The earliest doses of all GLP-1s are simply to prime your body and get it ready so that you don't have side effects at higher doses. GLP-1s are dose-dependent medications, like many things are dose-dependent. So it's just like having a headache and you only take half a Tylenol. It's not going to do a whole lot, but if you take 2, your headache will go away. It's the same thing. So when you're on the early, but the only difference is with Tylenol, if you take half a pill versus 2 pills, you don't really have side effects one way or the other. With GLP-1s, there is, you run the risk of side effects of nausea, really severe constipation, severe appetite suppression if you go up too far too fast. So the general rule is the fastest you can go up is once a month. However, some people, it should be 2 months. It just depends on how your body reacts, how, well things are controlled. The way I do it is I watch for appetite suppression. If it's too rapid a weight loss, I slow it down. Or if someone has side effects, especially if they disrupt their life, their day-to-day life, nausea, their sleep, some way that they can, just makes it so they don't eat or won't eat, then yes, I slow it way down. But yes, first dose, way too early. In fact, the first 3 iterations are pretty early. Wegovy, for those of you who are listening, is the doses are 0.25, 0.5, 1, 1.7, and 2.4. And so when you're on 2.5, you're on the lowest of 5 doses. So no, it's not going to do too much, and it is too soon. So really, I always say give it about 3 months at least before you can say something's working or not working. Thanks for the cake advice. Great session. Yeah, I mean, I'm serious. I mean, cake is one of those things where, I mean, of course you do it in moderation. You don't do it all the time, but I mean, it's just not real life to just give up cake for the rest of your life. I mean, I just had my birthday. I wasn't about to not have cake for my birthday. And also the other is cake. I mean, food is also a love language for many people. So learning how to eat other people's cooking, if there's someone who's trying to show you love through their acts of love through cooking, you want to know how to do that so it doesn't harm you in some way, or that it keeps you in, maintains your progress. And so, of course, if it's not all the time, like there's some people who will act, and I talked about self-sabotage. Now, there are other people who may sabotage you without knowing it. They're trying to either, and they'll cook your favorite foods and they'll cook your favorite desserts. And so those are times when you recognize what it is and you ask them to stop. But if it's every once in a while, it's okay. You just learn how to do it in a way that, that doesn't harm you. And I mean, I personally pride myself. And one of as they say, one of my skills is being able to tell someone what to do with particular food so that they can eat it without causing them a problem if they do it in moderation. I mean, that's how I lost 100 pounds and maintained it. I've never gained a pound back for that reason. I've never stopped eating anything that I enjoy. Okay. Nicola Barnes, thank you for trolling us. Oh, 99. Thank you. All right. So if anyone has any more questions, if there are not any more questions, I can, if not, I will see you next week. Remember, if you have questions, leave them with my YouTube channel. That's the best way for me to see them. And if there's any topics that you'd like me to, you can email me or you can send me messages on Facebook. I don't mind. I do not answer questions, however, in my DMs on Facebook. If you ask me a question there, usually what I'll do is I'll copy the question, put it in my group, and then answer it in the group so that it becomes group coaching. That's the best way for that. And so you would have to be in my group to see the answer. But if it's on YouTube, I do tend to respond. And sometimes I do take the questions without your name attached and just to help other people learn from it. All right. Well, thank you for joining. I appreciate it. If you're watching it later, please put #replay so I can see who's watching. And thank you. And then, and I'll see you next Tuesday at 6 o'clock Eastern. Good night. Oops.